888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Mr. McConnell, it seems to me the sound is more crisp than it was in the other place. Is it? Really? And does it sound differently on the other end? For our listening audience? So, new and improved Larry Elder's show, both in terms of the studio and in terms of the audio quality? Man. Hey, when you're green, you're growing, right? Well, there's a new survey. Guess who leads President Joe Biden in a 2024 head-to-head matchup? No, not Jussie Smollett. Donald Trump. Isn't it interesting how Joe Biden in his press conference preemptively suggested that the midterms in 2022 might be illegitimate if these dastardly Republicans fail to pass the voting rights legislation before them. Right? And I knew that they were going to twist themselves in a pretzel to explain why this is different than Trump challenging 2020, and they did. There is a publication called The Hill, and the writer said, well, you know, the difference is that Donald Trump had no grounds to question 2020, but the president has grounds to question 2024, even though it's, 9 months away? We're going to go again over the groundless claims that Donald Trump allegedly made, except they weren't groundless. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin was just stopped there. So please stick around for that, especially you lefties who believe that Donald Trump has been pushing the big lie that has been undermining our republic, and he's been grasping at conspiracy theories. You lefties, I know you guys listen to the program. You don't tell your friends you do, but you do. So stick around for that one, okay? The Supreme Court is going to take up the affirmative action case regarding Harvard's use of race for its admissions, shafting Asian Americans, by the way, and University of North Carolina. And the reason those two schools are interesting is one is private and one is public. Both, however, take government money for scholarships. So the law is going to apply equally to a private school or to a public school if the Supreme Court rules against affirmative action. Last time they talked about this was around 2006, 2008-ish. And the Supreme Court ruled we need affirmative action for another 25 years. Clock is ticking. We only have about 6 years left, assuming that Supreme Court case is followed. So it's deep sunset time for race-based preferences for colleges and universities, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing because the more you lower the standards, the greater the likelihood is that the, quote, beneficiary, close quote, of race-based preferences is going to drop out. We'll talk about that later on. There is an investigative reporter named Peter Schweitzer, and he was on the Mark Levin show over the weekend. And he says the Biden family has received, wait for it, $31 million from, and I'm quoting him, the highest levels of Chinese intelligence, close quote. The Biden family getting money from the highest levels of Chinese intelligence? Next thing you're going to tell me is that they've been getting money from Ukraine. But first, I want to start here. Sad note. 2 officers shot, NYPD officers. 1 fatally. 1 is struggling for his life. Wilbert Mora, 27-year-old officer, suffered a serious head wound and is in a hospital, remains in life-threatening condition. Another officer, Jason Rivera, was murdered. 22-year-old joined the force to make a difference in what he described as a, quote, chaotic city. Details are still emerging, but here's what we know. Woman made an emergency call on Friday, said she was ill and her son had come to take care of her and that the son had become problematic. That word was in quotes, meaning presumably the woman used that word. 3 officers go to the apartment after the call came in. Officers spoke with the woman and another son. There was no mention, apparently, of a weapon. Officers go to a rear room to talk to the man in question. Suddenly, shots rang out, striking the 2 officers. 47-year-old man, suspect believed to be the son, was then shot by another officer, a rookie, who stayed with the mother in front of the apartment. The officer struck the suspect in the neck and in the shoulder. Suspect was later admitted to the hospital in critical condition, and I will give you an update on the son's condition. This is unfortunately increasingly happening in our society as the officers are being accused of engaging in systemic racism and as more and more suspects are resisting arrest. In 2021, 73 officers died in felonious killings in the line of duty. That is the highest total recorded by any agency since 1995, excluding the 9/11 terror attacks. Gunfire consistently leading the cause of felonious assaults against officers each year, and 2021 was no different. 73 officers, felonious killings in the line of duty in 2021, up substantially from 39 in 2020. You think maybe the Black Lives Matter movement has anything to do with this felonious defamation that officers are engaging in systemic racism has anything to do with it? By the way, there is a New York City councilwoman named Kristen Richardson Jordan. And just 2 weeks ago, she tweeted, quote, "The NYPD is still the biggest gang in New York City." Let me give you a few other tweets she sent out. This one was in June of last year. Quote, "Always remember that the police and prison systems were created to preserve slavery. To break the chains, we must fight for total abolition." Total abolition, I presume she means of the police and of prisons. Let's start in your neighborhood first. Here's another one. This was 4 days after the one I just now mentioned. Quote, "We cannot reform a system of policing that is so firmly rooted in racism. Defund and abolish NYPD. The police have never served our communities. They don't prevent crime. They are an occupying force created to terrorize poor people and enforce racial hierarchies and class divides," end of quote. Here's one she sent out in August of last year. Quote, "We demand an immediate end to the racist and classist cash bail system and the immediate release of all New Yorkers incarcerated at Rikers Island and in all New York City jails." I kid you not. This is an elected councilwoman, of course, a Democrat. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coast, Los Angeles, where I'm broadcasting, 2 women, 2 men killed, and 1 man wounded in a possible gang-related ambush-style shooting at a house party in Los Angeles. Now, I mentioned gang-related ambush. Do you know that the governor that I tried to recall, Gavin Newsom, visited the area of downtown LA where all these trains were being robbed, the Union Pacific trains? And he said that this was because of gang thieves. And then Gavin Newsom apologized for using the word gang. I kid you not.
Just mark my words, this is not one-off. This is organized theft. These are organized gangs of people that are coming out, and forgive me for saying gangs. I know that's not a pejorative. They're organized groups of folks.
Forgive me for saying gang. That's not a pejorative. These are organized groups. Organized groups, they're not gangs? I thought organized groups that engage in crime were called, I'm looking for the word, I can't find the word. Mr. McConnell, can you help me with the word? Gangs! I'm sorry.
Just mark my words, this is not one-off. This is organized theft. These are
Mr. Elder, this is Milo calling. I was just having a question about like where you think the country is going, and do you think we can ever get back to where we used to be? Do you think we'll unite like we did after the Civil War was over with Lincoln, or do you think it's pretty much done?
Just mark my words, this is not one-off. This is organized theft. These are organized gangs of people that are coming out, and forgive me for saying gangs. I know that's not a pejorative. They're organized groups of folks.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com. So there's so much to get to. A judge ruled that Wisconsin can no longer use these absentee ballot drop boxes. That was one of the arguments that Donald Trump made in challenging the election results in Wisconsin. We'll get to that later on. Your question is an interesting one. Do I think we'll ever get back to the way we used to be? I was watching MSNBC this morning, so you don't have to. My girlfriend and I were watching, and they pointed out that there is a poll. Mr. McConnell, I'm hearing music from this thing over here. I don't know what this is. There's a poll that says something like 70% of Americans believe that our democracy, of course we don't have a democracy, we have a constitutional republic, as we say over and over again, but I'm just telling you what the poll said. Over 70% believe that our democracy is in trouble, it's in deep trouble. And they introduced their next guest, who was Carl Bernstein, the left-wing tandem of Woodward and Bernstein, formerly with the Washington Post. So I said to Nina, what's the over-under on how long it'll take him to mention the word Trump? And I said, I give it 15 seconds. She said, I give it 30 seconds. He did it in about 12. Bernstein said, well, the big problem, of course, is our last president, yada, blah, et cetera. Do I need to point out one more time that when it comes to the percentage of Americans who thought race relations were good or somewhat good, the peak came during the first administration of George W. Bush, his first term. And it fell like a stone during the second term of Barack Obama. Because much of what people talk about in terms of us not getting along has to do with race. And when I say race, it has to do with blacks and whites. Polls pretty much don't give a rip what Asian Americans think or what Hispanics think. It's about blacks and whites. Whenever you hear the term race relations, it's how black people feel about white people and how white people feel about how black people feel about white people. That's what it is. That's what we're talking about here. And 83% of Democrats believe Donald Trump's a racist. So here's where we are. You can't have a point of view in this country without the left somehow maligning your point of view as racist if you're white. And if you're black, you're the black face of white supremacy. That's where we are now. Hollywood, academia, media. And it's pretty disgusting. When if you look at it in any objective way, any meaningful way, are black people oppressed? Every Fortune 500 company has something called a outreach program, a diversity consultant, or some such thing to make sure that their workforce is diverse, however you define the word diverse. Virtually every college has changed, altered, lowered standards in order to make sure that more blacks and Hispanics are admitted. That is the basis for the Supreme Court case that the court has agreed to hear regarding plaintiffs, Asian Americans who are suing Harvard, because it is clear that Asian Americans are being shafted in favor of lesser qualified, by their standards, blacks and Hispanics. Out here in California, we had an initiative to stop the use of race-based preferences. This was about 20 years ago. And it passed. And what happened? The result was the percentage of Asian Americans admitted into the more elite state colleges, UC Berkeley and UCLA, went up dramatically. Percentage of blacks and browns went down, but not went down altogether regarding all 10 or so of the UC colleges here in California. A greater percentage of blacks and browns were admitted to the lesser competitive campuses. So the overall number of blacks and browns admitted to the UC system did not change. In fact, went up a little bit. And the dropout rates improved because the students were better matched with the ability of them to keep up with that school. But the bottom line is, it is easier for a black person with a given SAT and given grades to get into a school of his or her choice than a white student who's similarly qualified. It's a lie that systemic racism is holding people back. We've talked about this many times. And it's getting people killed because cops are pulling back. It's called the Ferguson effect or the George Floyd effect or the Minneapolis effect. Choose your term. And as a result, cops are being less proactive. And as we discussed last couple of weeks, hundreds of people are now dead who otherwise wouldn't be dead but for the cops stopping their proactive policing in certain cities. New York, Chicago, LA, Philadelphia, Baltimore, St. Louis. By this lie. So the lie that America is systemically racist continues to infuse our society to make virtually everything worse. A young lady was just murdered in Los Angeles. Killer still on the loose. And so far, about $25,000 has been raised, as opposed to $250,000 raised for the UCLA grad student, who happened to be white, who was working by herself in a furniture store in Hancock Park, an upscale area of LA where Maxine Waters has her mansion. And a local black activist questioned why there was so little money raised for this young lady as opposed to the UCLA grad student. The answer is, unfortunately, it's commonplace for blacks to be killed and Hispanics to be killed in Los Angeles. LA Times had a front page article, and it said virtually all of the increased homicides year to year that we've seen has come at the expense of the black and brown communities. Black Lives Matter couldn't give a rip. If a white cop kills a black person, well, in they come. But gang members killing other gang members, which is the more likely way a young black man is going to be killed, they couldn't give a rip. A young black man is 8 times more likely to be a victim of a homicide compared to a young white man. The number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, like car accidents. The number one cause of preventable or non-preventable death for a young black man, homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man. And this governor has the nerve to come down to downtown LA and comment on the thefts that are going on these trains and refers to those doing it as gang members and then apologizes for calling them gang members. Having overseen the release of thousands of convicted felons, including violent ones, because he believes that, well, it's just unfair for bad guys to be thrown in jail if they're disproportionately black and brown because that's evidence of a systemically racist criminal justice system. Never mind, the victims are overwhelmingly black and brown. It's disgusting. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. Biden continues to fall in the polls. That when we come back.
Reno, Nevada. I watched that Biden press conference, if that's what you want to call it, as incoherent as it was. But a lot of things weren't mentioned, curiously, like what was not mentioned, like the elephant under the table, like no Afghanistan they didn't mention, didn't ask any questions about the border, didn't ask any questions about crime going through the roof. And one question I would have loved to ask is, what about little Hunter Biden? And if somebody would have asked him some questions on that, he probably would have walked out of the room with blew his top. But anyway, that's my opinion, Larry. So keep up the good work. We love you out here. Take care of yourself because we need you, brother.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-SAGE. Thank you for love. Appreciate the love. During the press conference, they did mention Afghanistan, but Hunter Biden didn't come up, and you're right about the borders, but Afghanistan did come up, and he said he does not apologize for Afghanistan. Now, towels don't seem to dry you anymore. They feel all soft and lotiony in the stores. You get them home, they don't absorb. Mike Lindell scoured the country, found the best towel company, and they've got proprietary technology to create towels that feel soft but actually work. Made with USA cotton, and they come with the MyPillow customary 60-day money-back guarantee. So here's the deal. 6-piece set, 2 bath, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. Soft, yet absorbent. Regularly $109.99, now $39.99. So just go to MyPillow.com, click on the new radio listener specials, and you're going to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the towels. Promo code Larry or call 800-890-1843 for these great radio specials. MyPillow.com, promo code Larry, or 1-800-890-1843. I want to get back to crime for a second before we get into Biden's poll numbers and Biden's assertion that, I really can't say whether 2020 will be legitimate given the fact that the dastardly Republicans haven't passed the voting rights legislation that we believe is critical to rescue our democracy. Again, they use the word that they use, not the word I use, the republic. Now, you remember when the mayor was talking about how retailers are to blame for the theft in their stores?
Some of the retailers downtown in Michigan Avenue, I will tell you, I'm disappointed that they're not doing more to take safety and make it a priority. For example, we still have retailers that won't institute plans like having security officers in their stores, locking up their merchandise at night, chaining high-end bags. These purses seem to be something that is attracting a lot of attention on these organized retail theft units.
Part of reparations, you got to get a high-end bag, put your stuff in that you get reparations for. So basically, she said, it's your fault. You guys should be securing your stuff. Well, guess who said the same thing about the Union Pacific thefts downtown L.A.? L.A. DA George Gascon. He said, you're not protecting your cargo. The Director of Public Affairs for Union Pacific blamed the soft-on-crime DAs, all these people that are out walking around on bail, released from prison early because of the so-called prison reform attitude of people like Gavin Newsom and the soft-on-crime DAs. And Gavin Newsom said the same thing that Lori Lightfoot said. Well, it's I'm sorry, you need to lock your stuff up. Yeah. Community leaders here in L.A. are calling for a reward in the killing of a 16-year-old girl named Teone Theus. Body dumped alongside the 110 freeway. Gunshot wound to her head. Shootings, murders up in L.A. year to year, almost 40%. And a Democrat lawmaker here in the state of California has introduced a bill that would reverse Proposition 47, a proposition that was passed in 2014, reduced shoplifting charges regarding theft of $950 or less from a felony to a misdemeanor. And by the way, you can have 3 grams of meth, and that's just a misdemeanor, not a felony. And L.A. County Sheriff Alex Villanueva has told us on this program that it took the stick away from them. You got a bunch of homeless people, some of them doing meth. No longer can you say, get off the streets or you're going to jail, get off the streets and go into rehab or you're going to jail. And now the addict says, or what? Because you can't do anything to them. That's also part of Proposition 47 that's not talked about very much. Anyway, this lawmaker has now done a 180 on Proposition 47. And hopefully more and more people in California will eventually do a 180 on Governor Gavin Newsom. So by the time he's up for re-election in November, maybe, just maybe, the outcome will be somewhat different. I'm not going to hold my breath because, as you know, this state is outnumbered 3-1, Democrats and independents who vote Democrat compared to Republicans. And both houses of our legislature, the Senate and the Assembly, have not majorities of Democrats. They've got supermajorities of Democrats. And they pass one brain-dead bill after another, and support one brain-dead proposition after another, like Proposition 47, and one we haven't talked about that much, Proposition 57, which have reduced a whole bunch of felonies to non-violent offenses, including attack on a police officer, serial arson, rape of an intoxicated victim, I kid you not, and felony domestic homicide are now perceived to be non-violent. We have a new client. It's called Birch Gold. Why? Well, because inflation is at 40-year highs. You can protect your savings now, hedge against inflation with gold from Birch Gold, because the government is literally sabotaging the value of the dollar. Birch Gold will help you convert an eligible IRA or 401k into an IRA backed by real gold. Thousands of satisfied customers, A-plus rating with the BBB. You can trust Birch Gold to protect your savings. Just text Larry 989898 to get a free info kit on holding gold in a tax-sheltered account. Again, text Larry to 989898 to get your free info kit right now. Birch Gold. Text Larry 989898.
Larry, this is John from Minneapolis. I just wanted to comment on what Biden said about the election. He's talking about making a case to the American people. Well, that's going to happen after the election. And the election in 2022 is going to be fair or it's going to be unfair. If it's fair, presumably then, he wants to make the case to the American people that it's unfair. And if it's unfair, he wants to make the case to the American people that it's fair. Which one is it, Joe? Thanks, Larry. Great job.
Hi, Larry. The Democrats are saying that since the voting rights bill didn't pass and if Trump's reelected, it will be the end of democracy. Well, definition of democracy is mob rule, which is what the Democrats want. So I guess in that aspect, it would be the end of democracy, but not the end of our republic, which is what they want to do. So this voting rights law, if passed, would have meant the end of the republic, not the end of mob rule, just the beginning of mob rule. Thanks a lot. Bye.
GE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We're going to get to the corner that Joe Biden has painted the Democrats in. On the one hand, if you fail to pass the voting rights legislation that they propose, well, you aligned yourself with George Wallace, with Bull Connor, the man that sick water hoses and dogs on civil rights workers in Alabama, and Jefferson Davis. And you are engaging in conduct that's worse than Joe Biden said, Jim Crow. It's Jim Eagle, whatever the hell that means. And then he was asked, well, do you believe that if the Republicans don't pass the legislation that you're proposing, that the legitimacy of the 2022 midterm elections is in jeopardy? And Biden said yes. Now, why are people who've been making the same argument Joe Biden made shocked? Are you saying he didn't mean it when he said this is worse than Jim Crow, it's Jim Eagle? Are you saying he didn't mean it when he said, are you on the side of George Washington or MLK? Are you saying he didn't mean it? Because that would be the only way to justify Biden said, oh, no, it's all good. I'll still accept the results of the 2022 midterms. He can't. He can't. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But first, when I did a video about that writer for CNN, he happens to be a black guy from Baltimore, and he said that the thing he fears most is an angry white man. This is during the time of the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. That's the thing he's most afraid of, an angry white man. So I did a video about it. And I put him to task with, that strange thing known as facts. And there was a comment below it. And the comment was, well, almost all serial killers are white. Why is it people keep saying that? Do you remember when those two men were murdering people around Washington, D.C.? Malvo, John Muhammad, I think was his name, and the other younger guy. Two black people mowing down people outside of New York, outside of Washington, D.C. Turns out the police had stopped them several times and let them go because they were looking for what the FBI profiler said was likely to be a white man. That's why they were let go. It's just not true. Regarding mass shootings from 1982 to 2021, talking about mass shootings. I'll get to serial homicide in just a second, but we're talking about mass shootings where people are in one place, they don't know each other, and a certain number or more are killed. 17.4% of the mass shootings, and according to Mother Jones, they have a database of 121 over the period of 1982 to 2021. Again, Mother Jones. 17.4% of the mass shooters were black, as against 13% of the population. So blacks are overrepresented among mass shootings. Whites, 54.5%, as against 62% of the population. So they're underrepresented. So it's just not true. Now, regarding serial killers, from 1990 to 2010, 52.1% of U.S. serial killers were white, meaning, again, they are underrepresented. And during this period of time, 1990 to 2010, a 20-year period of time, 40.3% of the serial killers were black, including the Grim Sleeper in the L.A. Inglewood area, not far from where I grew up. And the numbers don't change much internationally, according to an article in Business Insider. So it's a lie. It is a lie. Now, I'm not quite sure why people feel good about this, because, you know, Ted Bundy is the poster boy for serial killers. But this guy writes in the comment section, yeah, but almost all serial killers are white. Not true. Not even remotely true. Now, I know television, all sorts of programs about Ted Bundy and other white serial killers. I know television does that. Just as when you watch a crime show on TV, the criminals are more often white than is the case in real life. The bad guys are less often black than is the case in real life. Because, of course, the writers are woke, sensitive. The guy that created the reality show called Cops, he publicly said he intentionally shows fewer black criminals than is the case in real life and more white criminals than is the case in real life because he doesn't want to perpetuate the stereotype. That's what he said. So please. So I'm a bad guy for telling the truth? What you ought to be asking yourself is, why is this happening? And one more time, you ought to be talking about the breakdown of the black family and how the welfare state has encouraged it. But no, let's just call Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy. I guess it makes you feel better. Now, you just don't vote in November. You vote every single month with the money you spend and the companies you spend that money with. Now, if you're still a customer of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, you are literally choosing to support candidates and issues that you oppose. You're funding Biden, Pelosi, Schumer. But I offer you a solution, Pure Talk. Pure Talk uses the exact same tower, same 5G network as one of those companies, but you're going to have the peace of mind knowing that you're supporting a veteran-run business with employees right here in the country. This is one monthly bill that you can actually be proud to pay. Oh, and by the way, it'll probably cost you about half of what your current cell phone bill is because the average family with Pure Talk saves over $800 a year. I kid you not. So do this. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder. And because Pure Talk loves my listeners, you're going to save an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder, pound 250, say Larry Elder, Pure Talk.
there's a lot of talk about racism, and of course we know it's out there. So I observe because that's what I like to do, and I look specifically at how people interact, and I see Mexicans, blacks or Mexicans, blacks and whites and from Romania and Poland. Everybody interacts. I don't see any racism. Everybody gets along and talks, and you know what racism is? From the media and the Democratic Party. It's pathetic and sad.
1-SAGE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. I've said this before. We get along just fine. Orlando Patterson, sociologist from Harvard, wrote in the 90s, America, despite its flaws, is the least racist majority society in all of the world, provides more opportunities than any society, any country in the world, including all of those of Africa. Now, regarding this article that was in CNN by a black guy claiming that the thing he fears most is an angry white man, here is a biracial man, mom, one parent with black, one parent with white, talking about all of this. And this was on Twitter, got quite a bit of reaction. Here's what he said.
Apparently, according to CNN, right now, if you go to CNN.com, top story, breaking news. There's nothing more frightening today than an angry white man. Oh, so true. So true. No, bull. Let me talk to the black people out there. Me being one. See, I'm half black, half white. I have a middle of the line perspective. Half black, half white. I consider myself a black male because I grew up in the hood, is what it is. But I consider myself American more than anything. And right now, the assault on white people is bothering the shit out of me as an American, as a biracial American. But more than anything as an American, because I happen to know from the inside of the black community that there's not a black person that I know with concealed carry or who carries a weapon or who has guns or has them to protect them from angry white men. Oh, we're not afraid of angry white men. We're afraid, fellas, hide your children because the language is going to get a bit strong. We're afraid of see, because there's a difference between black people and the neighborhoods across America are not filled with angry white men. They're filled with murderous, callous, degenerative, fatherless, young who don't give a about life.
We will finish this on the other end. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Reminds me of a riff that Chris Rock did some years ago where he made pretty much the same point. Well, maybe we'll get to that too as well. And Joe Biden saying that 2020 is preemptively illegitimate. All of that and more. I'm Larry Elder. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. In a survey, guess who leads Joe Biden in a head-to-head 2024 matchup? No, not Lori Lightfoot, not Hillary, not Beto O'Rourke, who's running again for governor in Texas, not AOC. Donald Trump. I kid you not. I guess maybe some people have rethought their hostility towards the Trumpster. And the Supreme Court has agreed to take up a case involving affirmative action, both in the private sector and public sector colleges. And NPR is refusing to retract a statement about the Supreme Court that 3 justices say it's false. NPR, their Supreme Court reporter is a woman named Nina Totenberg. She's been reporting on the Supreme Court for NPR forever. And she reported that Chief Justice John Roberts, quote, asked the other justices to mask up, close quote, because Sonia Sotomayor expressed concerns for her safety. Sonia Sotomayor said no. She never expressed any concerns about her safety. And Gorsuch, and she also said that Gorsuch refused the request because he's not worn a mask recently. Well, Sotomayor, Gorsuch are both denying this story. Roberts is denying it. Roberts had never asked anybody to mask up or anything. So you have 3 chief justices who are saying that the story that Nina Totenberg for NPR reported is false. And according to NPR, she, quote, stands by her reporting. So she's calling 3 Supreme Court justices, including the liberal Sonia Sotomayor, a liar. And they're standing by their story. Your tax dollars at work because we are in part paying for NPR. As far as I know, there's no groundswell on the part of Republicans to cut off the funding for NPR. So let's just move on, shall we? Now, regarding Joe Biden during the press conference refusing to say that he will accept the results of the midterms of 2022 if the Republicans do not support the so-called voting rights legislation. I told you they were going to twist themselves in a pretzel to defend it because, after all, the biggest attack line against Donald Trump and the reason that they are doing this January 6th business is because they're scared to death that he may run again, get the nomination, and become president again. And there is a section of the 14th Amendment that says you are ineligible to be president if you've been involved in an insurrection or a rebellion. That's why they called it an insurrection. That's why they've called it a rebellion. Even though out of the 700 people who were arrested, 10 have been charged so far with insurrection. And the leader of the 10 was angry that Donald Trump did not do more. Said all Donald Trump is doing is talking. So how Donald Trump is pinned with an insurrection is beyond me, but it doesn't matter because it's all about driving down his poll numbers and making sure he doesn't run again in 2024. But Joe Biden, during the press conference, took a lot of air out of the argument by saying, well, you know, if they don't pass this legislation, then I don't know if I can accept the results. And as I said at the beginning of the show, what else is the man supposed to say? After accusing Republicans who won't go along with this of being akin to Bull Connor, the public superintendent of safety, Birmingham, Alabama, who turned fire hoses, and sick dogs on civil rights workers. You're in the same camp as this guy. How's Joe Biden then going to say, well, you know, if they don't pass that legislation that I said is life and death for our democracy, then we'll still go along with the results. He can't do that. So here is what a writer for The Hill said in defending what Joe Biden said between Biden's assertion and Donald Trump's alleged big lie. Quote, the key distinction, wrote Alexander Burton, is that Trump hasn't been able to back up any of his fraud claims in court, and they have been dismissed by members of his own party, end of quote. Can I just unpack that a little bit? First of all, this business about Trump being denounced for going to court. Al Gore went to court, 2000. And Democrats have challenged the certification of the Biden victory, the George W. Bush victory in 2000, the George W. Bush re-election in 2004, and obviously the Trump win in 2016. Can we just go back memory lane a little bit?
I was not in this body 4 years ago, but what I observed as a voter, as a citizen of Illinois 4 years ago, were troubling evidence of the fact that not every vote was being counted.
Senator from New York.
Mr. President, this is obviously a difficult debate for many reasons, but I commend the senator from California for joining with members of the House, most particularly Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, in raising the objection, because it does permit us to air some of these issues.
Why did a computing error in Franklin County initially award 4,258 extra votes to George Bush when only 638 people had actually voted? Thankfully, they fixed it. But how many other votes did the computers get wrong?
Too many voters have cast votes on machines that jam or malfunction or suck the votes without a trace.
As we look at our election system, I think it's fair to say that there are many legitimate questions about its accuracy, about its integrity, and they're not confined to the state of Ohio.
Because of these and many other examples, all documented in the press, I am joining with Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones to cast the light of truth on a flawed system.
There is no reason at a time when we have enormous battles taking place ideologically all across the globe, at a time when we're trying to make certain that we encourage democracy in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places throughout the world, that we have the legitimacy of our elections challenged, rightly or wrongly, by people who are not certain as to whether our processes are fair and just.
Ohio is the objection. I'm from Ohio. I'm raising the objection. But I anticipate you will also hear from some of my colleagues from other states who had similar situations. Now, it's easy to say, well, it happened in Ohio, it happened in Michigan, it happened in Arizona, and so let's not worry about it because it happened everywhere.
So I would hope that this body, and thanks to the objection of my friend from California, this debate, which has started today, will continue.
But there are other things that are being presented that people have shown that I witnessed myself, that would say, that say to me that the irregularities in Ohio deserve a hearing in the House of Representatives.
I would be standing here saying this no matter what the outcome of the election, because I still think the best rule in politics is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
And as we've discussed many, many times, because of claims like that, because of assertions like that, 2/3 of Democrats falsely believe the Russians in the 2016 election literally changed vote tallies, even though the 1,000-page Senate report found the Russians tried, but they failed to change a single vote tally. And the report found we can't tell one way or the other whether or not the Russian interference altered the outcome of the election. 78% of Democrats, according to Gallup, believe that they did. Now, here is Maxine Waters objecting to the certification of Donald Trump, January 2017.
I wish to debate. I wish to ask, is there one United States senator who will join me in this letter
There
of
is no
objection?
debate. There is no debate.
That's one.
The gentlewoman will suspend. The chair has previously ruled a signature from a senator is required. Objection cannot be received.
Regarding Trump not being able to back up any of his claims, let's talk about Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan when I come back. I'm Larry Elder.
Larry. I just had a quick question. So when Joe Biden makes the statement, do you want to be like Dr. Martin Luther King or George Wallace? What is he trying to compare that to? Because Dr. Martin Luther King was the one who fought for the civil rights. So I don't understand what is he trying to do. Maybe you can answer that question for me. Let me know, my brother. Okay, hallelujah.
So I ask every elected official in America, how do you want to be remembered? At consequential moments in history, they present a choice. Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do. And it cannot be sustained.
Look, that's what these guys are all about, man. These Republicans don't want working class people voting. They don't want black folks voting. And look at what we're doing now.
SAGE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. I'll get into what Joe Biden is trying to accomplish with that comparison in just a second. Brand new sponsor to the Larry Elder Show, Birch Gold. Right now, inflation, 40-year highs, and looks like it's here to stay for the foreseeable future. Here's why. The government wants it. Right now, inflation rates are higher than the interest rates on T-bonds. So with every day that passes, the government owes less on its mountain of debt. Imagine if your mortgage had a negative interest rate. Would you be in a hurry to pay it off? Precisely. So your pain is their gain. But you can protect your savings right now, hedge against inflation with gold from Birch Gold. Because the government is sabotaging the value of the U.S. dollar. Birch Gold will help you convert an eligible IRA or 401k into an IRA backed by real gold. Now that's peace of mind. With thousands of satisfied customers and an A-plus rating with the BBB, you can trust Birch Gold to protect your savings. Just text Larry to 989898 to get a free info kit on holding gold in a tax-sheltered account. That's text Larry to 989898 to get your free info kit right now. Larry, 989898. Get your free info kit right now. Birch Gold. Now, as I said, the writer for The Hill defended Joe Biden's assertion that you can't trust the results of 2022, even though 2022, November, is not here yet, because after all, Trump, quote, hasn't been able to back up any of his fraud claims in court, and they have been dismissed by members of his own party, end of quote. By some members of his own party. Jonathan Turley is a Democrat professor of law at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He was on CNN, and Jake Tapper referred to Donald Trump's, quote, bloodless coup, close quote. And he pointed out to Mr. Tapper, look, when you go to court and you make an argument, even if you feel that the argument is not likely going to win, you still went to court and did it the lawful way. How is that a coup? He said to Mr. Tapper. How is that a coup?
Well, it is a fair challenge in the sense that it is a challenge that is being made under federal law. It is a challenge that has been made repeatedly by Democratic members of Congress in prior elections. That's why I took some. I had some concern about CNN's host Jay Tapper referring to this as an attempted bloodless coup. It's not a bloodless coup. It's not a coup of any kind. It is the very same law used in the same way as Democrats in past elections. Now, that doesn't mean that this is right. I don't support this challenge. I don't think that there's a basis for it. But it is being done under this federal law. Now, there's a separate issue as to whether that law is itself constitutional. That debate has raged literally for decades.
Now, let's talk about some of the states. Pennsylvania. Trump lost that state by 80,000 votes. Alan Dershowitz, however, argued that election irregularities in that state warranted a Supreme Court review, predicted the Supreme Court would, in fact, take up the case, and that when they did, Donald Trump would win. Now, the Supreme Court didn't take up the case, and as a result, it was never heard on the merits. I'm just telling you that Alan Dershowitz, not exactly a Trump supporter, not exactly a conspiracy theorist, not exactly a conservative, felt that Donald Trump's challenge was perfectly legitimate and that it would win.
You know, we have to wait to see about recounts, and we have to wait to see whether there is any evidence of systemic fraud. I do think that Trump will win the Pennsylvania lawsuit, namely the lawsuit that challenges ballots that were filed before the end of the day, Election Day, but not received until after Election Day. The legislature had basically said no to that, and the state Supreme Court said yes because of the pandemic. You know, that may have been the right decision in some theoretical sense, but the Constitution doesn't permit any body in the state but the legislature to make decisions about elections, and that was decided peripherally as well in Bush versus Gore. And I think that 4-4 vote would become a 5-4 vote if the issue came before the Supreme Court and there were enough disputed ballots to make a difference in the outcome of the election. That remains to be seen. But I think legally they have a sound argument, and I have nothing but praise for lawyers who want to use every possible argument and exhaust every legal remedy. That's their job. And the idea that some lawyers are threatening to quit law firms like Jones and Day and Wright Morris because they don't like the fact that some lawyers in the firm are making these arguments on behalf of President Trump is such a violation of legal ethics and what lawyers are supposed to be doing. I thank the lawyers for providing legal services, even if they are services toward ends I don't necessarily agree with.
Bloodless coup. And about Pennsylvania, here's what Jonathan Turley said, quote, "In Pennsylvania, you had an order by a Supreme Court justice to compel them to separate ballots that were received after the legislative deadline. Notably, the officials were not giving a clear answer as to why they were doing that." End of quote. And last week, it was revealed in a Zoom meeting with election officials after the November 2020 election. An election official admitted that the election officials failed to follow the law. Listen to her.
So why don't we talk about that offline, because Jim and I had a brief conversation today, and this time it's much different than last time because we're going to have them sign oaths. They're going to need W-4s, and we need them to sign something allowing them to somebody else to pick up. So we're going to actually follow the law fully this time. And so there's a lot more stuff in our letters.
We're going to actually follow the law this time? Ha! What is that but an admission that you didn't follow the law the last time? We come back, we're going to talk about Michigan, and we're going to talk about Wisconsin. All three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, among others, Trump challenged. And there were substantial reasons why Trump did so. Bloodless coup, conspiracy theories, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. Do not leave town. got your voting rights right here. Yeah, I was thinking about that when I watched it. Sure looked like it.
Hello, Larry. This is Dave in Sacramento. About the low approval ratings talked so much about President Biden. Isn't it different for a Democrat president than a Republican president? Because when the pollsters ask Democrat respondents, aren't there a bunch of them who say that they disapprove only because President Biden is not going left enough, fast enough for them, which Republican respondents tend not to do for Republican presidents? Keep up the good work, Larry.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We're going to get into Joe Biden's sinking poll numbers and the report done by Peter Schweitzer, the investigative reporter, that says the Biden family have enriched themselves to the tune of $31 million from the highest levels of Chinese intelligence, end of quote. We talked about Pennsylvania. Let's move on to Michigan. And again, we're responding to the writer for The Hill who said, well, the difference between Joe Biden challenging 2022 preemptively is that Trump never had any basis for his challenges. They were all thrown out by the courts. Michigan. Trump lost that state by 146,000 votes. And as we discussed last week, the Secretary of State sent in a mail-in by vote by mail application to every single registered voter in the state of Michigan, whether or not that voter requested one. And the Michigan Supreme Court declined to hear the case, but the Michigan Appellate Court did, and it ruled against Trump 2-1. But the dissenting judge, and the reason I'm citing the dissent is because of this business that Donald Trump tried to engage in a bloodless coup, that he had no basis for any of his arguments. They were all conspiracy theories. Well, unless you want to call the dissenting judge in the Michigan Appellate Court a nutcase, then you have to at least recognize that there was something to Donald Trump's argument. And the Appellate Court ruled 2-1 against Trump. But the dissenting judge said this: nowhere in the provisions of the law is the defendant, referring to the Secretary of State, empowered to distribute in an unsolicited manner absentee ballot applications, meaning the voters didn't request them. Under the plain language of the law, only local clerks have that power to do so. Not Secretary of State. Did it anyway. That's Michigan. And it was ruled 2-1, a very close decision. Now let's go to Wisconsin. Another close case. This one went all the way up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And Trump lost 4-3. 3 of the justices filed dissents, including the Chief Justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And here's what she said. She criticized the majority. Quote, once again, 4 justices on this court, she wrote, cannot be bothered with addressing what the statutes require to ensure that absentee ballots were lawfully cast. I respectfully dissent from that decision, she wrote. The Milwaukee County Board of Canvassers and the Dane County Board of Canvassers based their decision on erroneous advice when they concluded that the changes clerks made to defective witness addresses were permissible. And the Dane County Board of Canvassers erred when it approved the 200 locations for ballot collections, we call them drop boxes, that comprise what was called democracy in the park. So she said that they should not have corrected the defective witness addresses, and these drop boxes in 200 locations were unlawful. 4-3 decision. It could have gone the other way. And by the way, just last week, a Waukesha County judge ruled that these absentee drop boxes that we're talking about cannot be used in Wisconsin for upcoming elections. 3 hours of argument. And he said, you may say that these drop boxes, quote, are all good and nice, but there's no authority to do it, end of quote. I repeat, quote, says the justice, the Waukesha County Circuit Court judge. His name is Michael Bowen, B-O-H-R-E-N. Quote, it's all good and nice, but there's no authority to do it, end of quote. That's exactly the argument that Donald Trump made and lost when it went up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So all I'm saying is these arguments were not fallacious. You had dissenting judges in Michigan and in Wisconsin agreeing. And you have left-wing professors like Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley arguing that the Wisconsin case should have been taken up and that Donald Trump would likely have won it. Now, 3-week quick start relief factor, only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, assuming it works, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. If you've got back, shoulder, neck, foot, knee pain, whether from exercise or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. 4 100% drug-free ingredients, each of which deals with pain from a different metabolic pathway. Just go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
after Mitch McConnell's little Freudian slip, making black people seem like they're not Americans. Well, let's see how you spin that one, since you're such a spin doctor for whoever pays your paycheck. And another thing, this is why I see black people, I never hear them in a month, 10 of them call up praising you, but I see whites praising you from left to right. Any sane or normal black person would say to themselves, something's wrong with that picture when your own don't even want to really support you unless they are in the same boat as you, and ain't that many. So I hope you feel good about that, you and all the other people like Tim Scott that do this stuff, I guess, for money or fame or both. I hope you can live with yourselves at night comfortably. Have a nice evening, Mr. Elder.
Sigh. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Dude listens to the show every day. I mean, he can't live without me. I give his life meaning. Behold my power. Now make me an omelet. What gets me about this gentleman, you got Barack Obama saying this. This is in 2007.
The previous generation, the Moses generation, pointed the way. They took us 90% of the way there, but we still got that 10% in order to cross over to the other side.
Now, I bet you anything the gentleman voted for Obama twice, loves him some Obama. Walks on water, Obama. Here he said in 2007, the Moses generation, referring to the generation of Martin Luther King, has gotten us 90% of the way there. We still got that 10%. And as I said many times, in 2002, I believe it was, there was a Fox opinion poll that found out 8% of Americans believe Elvis is still alive. I think it was 6% believe if you send him a letter, he'll get it. So 8% of Americans just got to write off. So maybe you got 2% you can work with. This is done. This is why when Obama walked into the Oval Office the third week of January in 2009, his approval had gone from, 52% or so is what he got when he won, to almost 70%. Because so many people said, okay, I didn't vote for this man, but at least he's going to put a fork in the idea that America is systemically racist and a black man could never become president because of America's systemic racism. But the gentleman who calls me is mired in the idea that somebody is holding him back. And somebody like Larry Elder, who has a different point of view, has to be paid by somebody. Tim Scott has to be paid by somebody. What is that? I mean, how incredibly demeaning is that? When people call up the late, great Rush Limbaugh and criticize him, did they accuse him of being paid by somebody to undermine white people? I mean, really? This idea that there is this dark force out there, it's what drives the hosts on MSNBC, including Joy Reid. Listen to this.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think it was a mistake looking back? Because, the infrastructure bill...
She's talking to the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. Listen to this.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think it was a mistake looking back? Because, the infrastructure bill that was passed was cleaved apart from what's now being called Build Back Better. And in a sense, it's a bill that's like a white guy employment act, right? There's going to be a lot of working class men that are going to get employed by that bill, but that's...
A white guy employment act? Who thinks like that? Who sees the world like that? Honestly.
Called Build Back Better. And in a sense, it's a bill that's like a white guy employment act, right? There's going to be a lot of working class men that are going to get employed by that bill, but that's the very cohort that is much more likely to reward Republicans for that. That's who they vote for. Most, working class white guys vote Republican. Meanwhile,
this is a woman who had a blog circa 2006, 2007, in which she blasted gays, criticized the movie Brokeback Mountain, said she is disgusted when she watches gay men kiss, implied Tom Cruise was gay, implied the then governor of Florida was gay. And then when she gets a job as a host of MSNBC, and of course these blog posts surface, she denied making them. She said she had been hacked. In other words, she'd been the victim of a hate crime. So NBC hired an expert to find out whether or not her blog had been hacked. The guy said it hadn't been hacked. And then she admitted that she wrote them, but said, I just don't believe that it was me that did it. I don't know who that person is. And then later on denied that she wrote them again, before admitting that she wrote them again. She should be kissing the ground she walks on, that she was given another chance despite the blatant homophobic things that she said. Can you imagine if Donald Trump said stuff like that, what they would have done to him? But here she is, railing and railing and railing about how evil the dastardly white man is, provided the white man is a Republican. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And here she is, Mayor Pete, who talked about endemic racism, foundational racism, said it's up to white people to root out the racism. You can't get a more woke white guy than Buttigieg, and she's accusing him of supporting a policy that just benefited white working class people who vote Republican. Who thinks like that? Who sees the world that way? It's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
All the stuff for the women, for moms, for people who need child care, for people of color that's going to affect climate, which young people really care about, extending the child tax credit, all the stuff that helps families and women and younger people and, people with college debt, all that got dropped. Do you think it was a mistake to split those bills?
Well, no, I want to challenge the idea that this is a bill that only benefits one part of the population. I get where you're coming from and what you're saying, but
I get where you're coming from and why you're saying it. You got to say that. I disagree with everything you just now said, but I understand what you're saying. I get where you're coming from. Don't get mad at me for disagreeing. How pathetic is that?
Look, you look at something like the investment in transit. It's
whoever said that compound interest is the greatest force in the universe never encountered white guilt. I give you Mayor Pete.
Americans of color, commuters of color, who are most likely to depend on that. You look at the jobs we're going to create, and yeah, they have been traditionally white and male, but it doesn't have to stay that way. We're working at...
Now, for years, I've been telling you about the 3-week quick start. It's only $19.95. By the way, it's the same price whether you're white or not. That's less than $1 a day to see if we get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free, to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. That's right, approaching inflammation from 4 different angles. So if you've got back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain, from exercise, or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. Again, less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. Just go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384. skepticism.com studio. Next up, Biden's numbers, 36% say that only 36% say they would vote for Biden today. That's not good news. Let's pay off that biracial man, black, white, who says he's sick and tired of being accused of being an angry white man, I guess an angry half-white man, and that angry white men are the problem in America.
Apparently, according to CNN, right now, if you go to CNN.com, top story, breaking news. There's nothing more frightening today than an angry white man. Oh, so true. So true. No, bull. Let me talk to the black people out there. Me being one. See, I'm half black, half white. I have a middle of the line perspective. Half black, half white. I consider myself a black male because I grew up in the hood, is what it is. But I consider myself American more than anything. And right now, the assault on white people is bothering the shit out of me as an American, as a biracial American. But more than anything as an American, because I happen to know from the inside of the black community that there's not a black person that I know with concealed carry or who carries a weapon or who has guns or has them to protect them from angry white men. Oh, we're not afraid of angry white men. We're afraid, fellas, hide your children because the language is going to get a bit strong. We're afraid of see, because there's a difference between black people and the neighborhoods across America are not filled with angry white men. They're filled with murderous, callous, degenerative, fatherless, young who don't give a about life, who don't care about the sanctity of life or the United States of America and the Constitution of America and the laws and practices of common decency. Angry white men have a reason to be angry. Why? Because right now, everybody on the left, the Democrat racist media, has white people under attack on some kind of backwards, power-grabbing, racist diatribe, almost like a self-genocide, to get rid of the more, the more sober thinking among them. So the angry white ones are the ones I like. I don't fear them. It's the ignorant young black people who are destroying the black community. That's the problem. It's the ignorant media who's trying to drive wedges between us so that we don't get along anymore. That's what makes me angry. What about you? Put something down in the comments.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We're going to be talking to Lavina from Dallas about Biden putting illegal aliens on buses, and Tim from Oakland about the Wisconsin election. So, Lavina, Tim, do not leave town. We'll chat in just a second. 888-971-SAGE is the number. You can watch the show on, what's the website again, Mr. McConnell? Salem News Channel. You can watch the show on Salem News Channel. I'm resplendent in my brand new studio. Attired in a... Who are you wearing? I'm wearing a sweater from, I think from Goodyear. Don't they make sweaters? Or is it Goodrich? Firestone? One of them. We're going to be talking about the Supreme Court taking up an affirmative action case. And we're also going to talk about the contradictions that Martin Luther King made. He wants a colorblind society, but he also suggested that we should have a color-coordinated one. I will get to that in just a second. Oh, by the way, in the great state of California, a bill has been introduced that would allow children age 12 and up to be vaccinated without their parents' permission. I kid you not. And Peter Schweitzer, the investigative reporter, says the Biden family received some $31 million from individuals, quote, at the highest levels of Chinese intelligence, end of quote. All of that and more. But first, more poll numbers from various organizations about the Joe Biden presidency. New poll says just 36% say they would vote for Biden if the election were held today. And as you know, Jen Psaki, Biden, other officials have talked about the raises people have gotten from year to year. And as we mentioned last week, when you look at the inflation, people are actually losing ground. Now, it's one thing for the great Eldersky to say that. It's another thing for the Washington Post to say that. Headline Washington Post, that raise meant nothing. Inflation is wiping out pay increases for most Americans. Subheadline, again, Washington Post, not Fox News. After years of barely budging, wages are finally up. But the same strong recovery that is emboldening workers is also driving up inflation, leaving most Americans with less spending power than they had a year ago, end of quote. And the article quotes Department of Labor, which says that the average hourly wages rose 4% last year, but overall wages fell 2.4% on average when adjusted for inflation. More bad news for Mr. Biden. According to a poll by McLaughlin and Associates, in a head-to-head matchup against Donald Trump, Biden loses, Trump 49%, Biden 44%. And 81% of Republican primary voters indicated they would support Donald Trump for the Republican nomination. Here's another poll. Politico Morning Consult poll came out last week. 37% of respondents gave President Biden an F for his first year. Only 11% gave him an A. 20% gave him a B. A third gave him either a C or a D. Not good news. And an AP poll for Pacific Affairs Research, disapproval 56%, approval 43%. Just 28% of Americans say they want Biden to run for re-election. Only 48% of Democrats want him to run for re-election. And on the Mark Levin show, investigative reporter Peter Schweitzer says that the Biden family received some $30 million from individuals, quote, at the highest levels of Chinese intelligence.
And look, we spent more than a year investigating Red-Handed, and one of the most startling things we uncovered is the simple fact that the Biden family, while he was vice president of the United States and continuing when he became president, received some $31 million from Chinese individuals who are linked to the highest levels of Chinese intelligence. $31 million. And these deals, which we lay out in the book, were carried out by a couple of individuals. One is a guy named Che Feng. Hunter Biden, in the Hunter Biden emails, refers to him as the super chairman. That's kind of his nickname for him. And he says in one email, I don't believe in the lottery anymore, but I believe in the super chairman. Now, who is Che Feng? He's kind of this sketchy Chinese businessman. His business partner at the time that he was striking deals with Hunter Biden, his business partner was the vice minister at the Ministry for State Security. He was in charge of, among other things, recruiting foreign nationals to spy for China. He was the head of something called the No. 8 Bureau. It doesn't get any higher than that. These are the sorts of individuals that were striking deals with Hunter Biden. In this particular case, Che Feng happened to help a $20 million deal be secured. Another individual that helped arrange that deal is a guy named Mr. Zhao. Mr. Zhao helped with that $20 million deal. He also sent $5 million to Hunter Biden. And he sent that money from a very interesting business called Harvest Global. So you have Mr. Zhao sending $5 million. Who's his business partner, Mark? His business partner is the daughter of the former head of the Ministry of State Security. This is the guy who runs the entire spy apparatus for China. Again, it does not get any higher than that. So what this means, Mark, is that in total, the Biden family got $31 million. They performed no discernible legitimate business activities, as I can find, for that $31 million. And every single deal came from individuals tied at the highest levels to the Chinese intelligence apparatus. So there's no question in my mind that they were targeted by the Chinese. And for the life of me, Mark, this is unprecedented. I don't know of a time in American history where the American First Family has had this kind of a financial bond with a foreign intelligence service, particularly a foreign intelligence service that wants to defeat the United States in global competition.
Now, as you know, I watch a lot of CNN and MSNBC, so you don't have to. And I scoured in vain to find out if anybody said a word about the story that Peter Schweizer broke. Meanwhile, Joe Biden says he does not regret his decision to withdraw from Afghanistan.
I'm deeply saddened by the facts we now face, but I do not regret my decision to end America's war fighting in Afghanistan and maintain a laser focus on our counterterrorism missions there and other parts of the world. Our mission to degrade the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and kill Osama bin Laden was a success. Our decades-long effort to overcome centuries of history and permanently change and remake Afghanistan was not, and I wrote and believed it never could be. I cannot and will not ask our troops to fight on endlessly in another country's civil war, taking casualties, suffering life-shattering injuries, leaving families broken by grief and loss. This is not in our national security interest. It is not what the American people want. It is not what our troops, who have sacrificed so much over the past 2 decades, deserve.
That's not what the polls show. It was a disastrous decision. And now there is a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. People not only are being killed, are being persecuted, they're also starving. All because of this unilateral decision, without consulting our allies, to pull out and leave billions of dollars of weapons behind.
one last and really important question. And it has to do with Afghanistan. The president got the question about withdrawal yesterday. The U.S. has sanctions against the Taliban, has not recognized the Taliban government, both of which I understand why those are in place. We've also put a freeze on about $9 billion in the Afghan government's assets, which are actually held here, which means they can't access it. Human rights groups estimate that as many as 20 million Afghans are now facing famine in a country that is the poorest in the world. What possible justification is there for the U.S. government to keep freezing those assets or to block aid or recognition of the Taliban if the result of it is tens of millions of people facing starvation?
Well, I'd say, Chris, the rationale is the horrible acts of the Taliban regime, and that's why these assets are frozen. I do think, though, we have to be part of finding a humanitarian solution to avoid a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, and it's something we're working on here every day.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. That was Chris Hayes of MSNBC, who I watched, so you don't have to. And he was talking to Ron Klain, Biden's chief of staff. Now, you didn't just vote in November. You vote every single month with the money you spend and the companies you spend it with. If you're still a customer of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, you are literally choosing to support the candidates and issues they donate to. You're funding Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, and the left-wing agenda that they're pushing. But you have a solution. Pure Talk. You see, Pure Talk, as I've said, uses the exact same tower, same 5G network as one of those companies, but with the peace of mind that you're supporting a veteran-run business with employees right here in the country. This is one monthly bill you can actually be proud to pay. Oh, and by the way, it'll probably cost you about half of what your current cell phone bill is because the average family saves over $800 a year. So do this. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder. And because Pure Talk loves my listeners, you're going to save an additional 50% off the first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder. Pound 250, say Larry Elder. Pure Talk. The zip poll question I left you with on Friday. Did you watch live some or all of President Biden's recent press conference? 34% of you said yes. 66% of you said no. You probably tuned into my show to hear the highlights. Good enough. Here's the one for tonight. We'll go over the results tomorrow. If you donated to my campaign to recall California Governor Gavin Newsom, had you ever donated to a political candidate before? A, yes, I had before. B, no, it was my first time. In order to participate in this poll question, you must be a member of the Zip community. Go to your app store, download the Zip app by searching under Zip Poll USA, and be sure and use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E, in order to respond to this question. Again, if you donated to my campaign to recall California Governor Gavin Newsom, and I hope you did, had you ever donated to a political candidate before? A, yes, I had before. B, no, it was my first time. Don't forget SAGE, S-A-G-E, Zip Poll USA. Lavina is in Dallas. Lavina, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
Well, Larry, I enjoy your show. Listen to you every single evening.
Thank you.
And I just had a couple of questions. Mr. Biden and his attorney general have put how many hundreds of thousands of illegals all over our country without asking permission from any of those states. And in Florida, one of those people has already committed a murder. Now, there's some federal statutes against human trafficking, and wouldn't they could be charged with human trafficking? Some of these people that are being turned loose are going into sex trafficking, children being sold to pedophiles. And as far as if they commit a heinous crime like rape, murder, why couldn't they be charged after the fact as helping to facilitate that crime?
Mm-hmm. Well, Lavina, the answer is think about all the crimes illegal aliens have committed in this country over the last several years. By your analysis, we should be filing all sorts of lawsuits against the federal government. The federal government can only be sued if there's a statute or a law that allows them to be sued, and failing to secure the borders is not one of them. If they allow an illegal alien in the country and that illegal alien kills somebody, believe me, the federal government is not legally liable. Maybe morally they should be. I'm just telling you that statutorily they're not. Otherwise, there'd be a boatload of lawsuits being filed against the government, and the borders would then be shut tighter than a clan's behind, as I said before. So there's no legal theory under which I can think of that it would be a successful lawsuit.
Well, if we manage to get, and I believe we will, the House and the Senate and the White House back, couldn't the laws kind of be changed and then go after these folks like Hunter Biden?
Oh,
for,
sure.
You know, conspiring with our enemies?
Sure, the law can be changed. I just, don't have a whole lot of confidence that they will be changed. I mean, think about what's happening in my state of California. You have these soft-on-crime DAs who are not putting bad guys behind bars. They've got cashless bail. So a whole bunch of people are running around who should be in jail who are not in jail. Is there a basis for filing a lawsuit against them? The guy that started all those people in Waukesha, Wisconsin, he shouldn't have been out. He was out on, $500 bail or $1,000 bail, whatever the hell it was. Believe me, if people could sue the DA that allowed him to get out, they would. There's no statutorily way of doing it, to my knowledge, in doing that. Otherwise, there'd be lawsuits all over the place for the government failing to do its number one responsibility, and that is to protect people and property.
Well, I think we need to get some laws changed in the foreseeable future and be able to go after politicians who conspire with our enemies and who break the law.
I'm with you.
I know if I brought people into the country illegally, I would be arrested and I would go to jail. So are they better than me?
Lavina, I'm on your side. I'm just telling you that I don't know of any law that would allow this to be done. Otherwise, believe me, lawsuits would have been filed a long time ago.
Well, I just hope one of them don't show up to my house because I got a T-shirt that says that I got a gun and I own a backhoe.
You said you had a second point too. What was the second point?
Well, that was the second point. Could they be charged in my state laws?
I see. Well, again, the answer is very, very unlikely. Again, the federal government can't be sued unless there's a statute, a law that allows them to be sued. And failing to police the borders is not a basis for suing federal officials. Otherwise, as I said before, they'd be sued. And I'm sure they have been sued. I'm sure people have filed lawsuits, but I don't know of a single one that's prevailed. I don't know a single one that's held ICE responsible or the federal government responsible or the vice president whose job is to be border czar responsible for any of this. I haven't seen anything like that. I'm confident lawsuits have been filed because people sue for all sorts of things in this country, but I'd be very, very surprised to find one that's been successful. I think I would have heard about it if it had been. Again, Lavina, I'm on your side. I think there ought to be culpability to allow all these people in this country. But they're allowing these people in this country for a reason, and that's because they believe that eventually they're going to become citizens, and eventually they're going to become voters, and eventually they'll vote for the Democratic Party. I've said many times, if illegals turn citizens, turn voters, would likely vote Republican, the borders would be shut down faster than a Klan's behind. But they're assuming that these illegal aliens are going to be so grateful, and a large number of them are going to be dependent upon the government, either for health care or for education, something that the Democrats are big on expanding at taxpayers' expense. And the argument is they're going to be so grateful they're going to pull that lever for the Democratic Party. That's the rationale behind it. Lavina, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. Tim from Oakland wants to ask about the Wisconsin election. Tim, you're up next. Don't leave town. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243.
one thing I was just thinking about. If there isn't a red wave and a massive exodus of Democratic voters over to the Republican side during the midterms, that's going to mean one of two things. And most likely it's going to mean that the Democrats were really good at cheating again. So that's the one thing. And the second thing is, well, we're going to have to do something, and it's going to prove that we probably can't ever win again if we don't even up the playing field by cheating ourselves. So I figured the way we could do that would be to make an announcement to all the illegal immigrants. If they go up and register as Republican and vote Republican right now, then they can have provisional citizenship status. What do you think? God bless you, Larry.
That'll close the borders. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Well, towels don't seem to dry anymore. They feel all soft and lotiony in the stores. You get them home and they just don't absorb. Mike Lindell scoured the country and found the best towel company with proprietary technology that creates towels that not only feel soft, but they actually work. Made with cotton right here in the country, and they come with the MyPillow traditional 60-day money-back guarantee. Here's the deal. 6-piece set, 2 bath, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. Soft, yet really, really absorbent. Regularly $109.99, now $39.99. Just go to MyPillow.com and click on the new radio listener special. You're going to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including but not limited to the towels. Enter promo code Larry or call 800-890-1843 for these great radio specials. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Larry, or 1-800-890-1843. I was talking today to a gentleman about school choice. It's one of the things that we're doing with our political action committee, elderforamerica.com. Throw something in the tip jar. We're campaigning. There are various initiatives around the country for school choice, including one here in California. Also, we're going to campaign against critical race theory. We're going to do something about these soft on crime DAs. There's about a dozen of them throughout the country with George Soros' fingerprints on them. We're going to do something about that. And in certain targeted critical races, we're going to be supporting candidates to help take back the House and take back the Senate. So the political action committee is called elderforamerica.com. So throw something in the tip jar if you can. Now, one of New Hampshire's most outspoken opponents of school choice, New Hampshire, important swing state. Guess whose son she pulled out of a public school to attend a private academy because, quote, he was experiencing difficulties. Her name is State Rep Marjorie Porter. And she says, and I'm quoting her, "It's good we had that option," close quote. This is an opponent of school choice who admits she pulled her own kids out of public school because he was experiencing difficulties. I've told you about the hypocrisy. Obama, for himself, never set foot in a public school. His daughters never set foot in a public school K through 12. And Michelle Robinson, who later on became Michelle Obama, while she did attend and graduate from a public high school in Chicago, it wasn't the closest one to her home because her parents felt it was inferior. So she availed herself of what we now would call school choice by going to a school far out in order to go to a better academic school. And one of the first things Obama did when he became president was shut down the Opportunity Scholarship Program that allowed parents in Washington, D.C. who were lucky enough to get in because more wanted to get in than could get in, roughly $7,500 to use for a private school, religious school, charter school, or what have you, to escape the D.C. schools that Michelle Obama wouldn't put Sasha Malia in. Can you say hypocrisy? Tim is in Oakland, California. Tim, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Larry, I love the job you do.
Thank you.
Hey, I heard you say something about a judge said it was illegal to have the drop boxes in Wisconsin.
That's right.
Well, there is a Republican, his name's Robin something, in Wisconsin. He's actually the Speaker of the House there. I heard this all on Mike Lindell's Frank speech. And he is actually he's writing legislation right now to make drop boxes legal. There's a Republican helping the Democrats in Wisconsin. That is a crying shame.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. A lot of these Republicans do that. I mean, I give you Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is the only senator in American history to ever vote to expel a member of his own party from the presidency. We've had now four impeachments, 2 against Donald Trump, and all. Impeachment is an indictment, and then it goes to the Senate for a trial. Never in the history of this country has a senator voted to expel a member of his own party until Mitt Romney did it twice. Disgusting. Now, 3-week quick start, $19.95. Less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day to stay out of pain. The doctors who designed Relief Factor selected 4 ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free, to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. So you've got pain. By the way, I was thinking about Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger when it comes to pain, but I digress. You have pain, back, shoulder, neck, foot, knee pain. Consider the 3-week quick start. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Let me tell you about where I'm from. Where I'm from, the digital divide makes equality nearly impossible.
When I get a job, I'll make $10,000 less than white people with the same skills.
SAGE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Not only did my Tampa Bay Buccaneers lose to the Rams, but I had to hear that commercial over and over and over again as I was watching football this weekend.
Let me tell you about where I'm from.
Where I'm from, the digital divide makes equality nearly impossible.
When I get a job, I'll make $10,000 less than white people with the same skills.
And as I said before, doesn't even pass the smell test. Employers, I know a lot of the people who listen to my program are entrepreneurs, employers, no matter your race, no matter your gender. If you have white employees and you could substitute them for black employees who would be equally productive, but you'd have to pay the black employees $10,000 less than the white employees, what would you do? You call your white employees in and say, it's been very nice, it's been great, it's been a slice, bye-bye, you're fired. And you'd replace them with black employees who are apparently willing to work for $10,000 less and be equally productive. It's crap. Absolute crap. Jeff is in Reno, Nevada. Jeff, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Larry, thank you for taking the call. And, you have the best bumper music, but I haven't heard the Temptations lately.
You're right. We've been in a slump on that. We'll do that.
Thank you.
Ms. McConnell, a little ball of confusion coming back, okay? We'll do that.
All righty. Yeah, I'm so glad you played that spot because I called to ask. I watched football this weekend for the first time in years. And I saw that same commercial, and I wanted to call up and ask you if Relief Factor is paying you $10,000 less than Dennis Prager.
Not to my
how about Charlie Kirk?
Not to my knowledge.
Good, but he's brand new. You've been doing this a long time.
That's right. Maybe I have a lawsuit for discrimination against Relief Factor.
You better demand some justice, brother.
You got it. Well, thank you for calling. And it's think about this. I said this, I think, the first time we talked about this commercial. On the one hand, liberals want a minimum wage. Why? Because they say employers are greedy. They only care about money. By the same token, they're saying the same greedy employers are overpaying for labor. So on the one hand, you're greedy and you'd get away with murder by paying people nothing unless there was a minimum wage below which they couldn't go. On the other hand, these same greedy employers are so stupid as to overpay labor by paying for white people and paying them $10,000 more than they pay for black people. It doesn't make any sense. Jeff, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Mary is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Mary, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Hi, Larry. This is Marie, your Swiss Miss from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Hey, Marie. How are you?
I am great. Your prior caller that was talking about Wisconsin's Assembly Speaker, Robin Voss, V-O-S. Yes, he's right. He's teamed up to push legislation to actually legalize the ballot drop boxes. And he, with Paul Ryan and I guess Mitt Romney, they're all never Trumpers. And that is their big motivation, and candidates that would be like them. Again, it's the rhinos, the Republican in name only. They're the establishment. They're the swamp.
You know what? And what gets me about people like Mitt Romney, Marie. Do you see the way they trashed him during 2012? They call him an animal abuser. They claim that he held down some gay kid when he was at that boarding school and cut his hair. He was called everything but a child of God. They called him racist because of the policies of the Church of Latter-day Saints. At one point, they didn't allow senior officials in the church to be black. They just trashed this guy. He doesn't understand who his friends are. He has no blooming idea.
Right, and what's kind of parallel is Liz Cheney is in cahoots with people who said rotten things about her dad.
Absolutely.
And
Call her father a
now she's best
warmonger.
friends with him.
Yes. And now she's in bed with him. It's ridiculous. Again, they have no idea what these people think about them, how they feel about them. They only use them right now because they're saying things that help them. But apart from that, you all of a sudden begin to take a different point of view, and you're a racist. You're a bigot. It's just extraordinary, Marie. Thank you very much for the call. Unbelievable. And remember what they said about the 2018 election when Stacey Abrams ran? Election was stolen. Election was stolen.
She would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
So when they lose, the election was stolen. Donald Trump says the election was stolen. He is a sore loser, a conspiracy theorist who is undermining the integrity of our republic. That's how these guys roll. Joe Biden still claiming that Build Back Better fully paid for, and no one making less than $400,000 is going to pay a dime in increased taxes. Never mind all of the taxes on cigarette tobacco products.
We can do it without increasing inflation or the deficit. 17 Nobel laureates in economics wrote a letter to me recently affirming that this bill would reduce inflationary pressures on the economy. Not increase, reduce it. And by the way, it's entirely paid for. Every single penny.
It's entirely paid for. Every single penny. No, it isn't.
And not a single person making less than $400,000 a year will pay a single additional penny in federal taxes. Not a single penny.
What did he say? Donald Trump was a liar. But Joe Biden's plans don't add to the debt, don't add to the deficit. Never mind what the Congressional Budget Office says, that people like Biden used to call the gold standard. Now all of a sudden, they're not the gold standard anymore because we're in charge. Mitt Romney unavailable for comment. 3-week quick start, $19.95. Less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. If you've got back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain, whether from exercise or just getting older, consider ordering the 3-week quick start. Why is it so cheap? Well, the 3-week quick start is priced so that we can make sure it works for you as it does for 70% of those who order it. And after that, as I said, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. Just go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or call 800-500-8384. That's 800-500-8384.
You know, Larry, you're a good guy. Listen to you every day. Okay, and the one thing I'm worried about, even if we do take over the House, next year, as long as we have guys like Mitt Romney in the mix, it's not going to do any good. All right, because Mitt Romney and others like him, all right, when Harry Reid did to him what he did, and he's got all these bad things to say about Donald Trump, okay, which did nothing to him basically. Harry Reid did a great amount of damage to him, and Joe Biden was right behind him agreeing with it, all right, about the tax thing. You don't hear Mitt Romney yelling about what they did, but you hear him yelling about because he doesn't like Trump's tweets. So we have a real problem in this country when it comes to people like that in office, senators and that. Vote it out, however you get them out of there. Because as long as we have guys like him in there, we're going to go, as a Republican, we're not going to go anywhere.
S8GE 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We just talked about that. Call him everything but a child of God. Harry Reid goes on the floor of the Senate and says the word is out that Mitt Romney has not paid taxes in 10 years. Let him prove it because he hasn't. And then after Harry Reid was comfortably out of the Senate, kicks back, interviews with CNN, admits he had no evidence, and was asked if he regrets it, to which he said no. Romney didn't win, did he? And it's the same guy, Mitt Romney, who trashes Donald Trump. Guy who delivered outstanding economy. Guy who secured the borders. Guy who put on 3 conservatives on the Supreme Court. These cases that have been coming down now regarding mask mandates, vaccine mandates rather. How do you think the cases would have come out had Hillary been elected in 2016? I'll tell you how they would have come out. We'd have a great deal more totalitarianism in this country. Donald Trump secured the borders in a more secure way than had been done in 30 or 40 years. Recognized that the Iranians were cheating the Iran deal, pulled out of it. Pulled us out of that ridiculous climate accord deal. Pardoned Jack Johnson. Supported school choice that urban parents want. I'll say again, if he's a racist, he sure needs to go back to racism school. 81% of Republicans say they'd vote for him again in 2024 if he ran and became the nominee, and I'm one of them. I hope Mitt Romney is listening. Who's your friend? Who's on your side? Let Mitt Romney prove he hasn't paid taxes. He has paid taxes because he hasn't. My goodness. I'm Larry Elder.